The mountains of America hide secrets that defy explanation. Two people, two completely different stories. One ended in tragedy, the other ended in a return without memory. On the 7th of August, 2013, professional photographer Christina Newell arrived at dawn at the Donald Vista Lookout Point in Sierra Nevada. In this place, 3 people had already disappeared before her. Her car was found locked. Her phone and keys were inside. Christina herself had vanished. 47 days later, only her shoes were found at the edge of a cliff. A professional photographer specializing in landscape photography, Christina planned to capture the sunrise over Donald Reservoir, one of the most picturesque views in California. She could not have known that she would become the 4th person to disappear in this cursed place in the last 8 years. Donald Vista Point is a remote observation deck located at an elevation of 6,900 feet above sea level in the Stanislaus National Forest. A 7.5-mile dirt road leads from Highway 108 to a small parking lot from which a 300-foot trail descends to the viewpoint itself, offering a panoramic view of an emerald reservoir surrounded by granite cliffs and pine forests. The beauty of this place is deceptive. Since 2005, 3 people have disappeared without a trace within a 3-mile radius of the observation deck. On the 23rd of June 2005, 24-year-old Nita Mayo, a student from Sacramento, disappeared. On the 15th of September 2010, 52-year-old Patricia Tolhurst, an experienced hiker from Modesto, did not return from a hike. On the 11th of May 2012, 37-year-old Breck Phelps, a biologist studying the local fauna, disappeared. None of these cases has been solved. No bodies have been found, no clues. Forest Service Ranger Molly Fuller, who has worked in the region for 19 years, admitted in an interview with a local newspaper, "There is no rational explanation for why this particular place. The terrain is difficult, yes, but no more dangerous than dozens of other areas in the Sierra Nevada. People park here and just disappear. It's not normal." Christina left San Francisco after dark. GPS data from her smartphone, later retrieved by investigators from cell phone records, showed that she arrived at the Donald Vista parking lot at 7:12 a.m. Sunrise that day was at 6:40 a.m. But Christina probably got delayed on the way or stopped to take other photos, a common practice for professional landscape photographers. She was alone. According to her loved ones, Christina often preferred to work alone so she wouldn't be distracted and could focus entirely on her photography. Her fiancé, Michael Strand, told detectives that he knew about Christina's plans for that day. She was going to leave early in the morning, spend a few hours there, and be back for lunch. "We planned to have lunch together at 1 p.m. She was punctual. When she didn't answer my calls by 2 p.m., I became concerned," he said. At 2:30 p.m., Michael called the Tuolumne County Sheriff's Office to report that his fiancée was not responding to his calls. The officer on duty took down the information but explained that an adult is only considered missing after 24 hours of no contact. Michael insisted on an immediate check, citing a history of disappearances in the area. At 4:45 p.m., Deputy Sheriff Robert McLean arrived at the Donald Vista parking lot. Christina's silver Honda Accord sedan was parked there, the only car at that moment. The car was locked. Looking through the windows, the deputy saw a bag on the driver's seat, a cell phone on the center console, and the car keys in the cup holder. McLean immediately realized that the situation was serious. If Christina had gone to the observation deck, she would have taken her phone with her. The photographer would not have left her keys in the car. The assistant walked along the path to the observation deck, calling Christina's name loudly. There was no answer. There was no one on the deck. There were no signs of human presence, no forgotten items, no trash. Returning to the car, McLean requested permission to open it. By 5:30 p.m., another assistant and ranger, Molly Fuller, were on the scene. The car was opened. Inside, they found Christina's bag with her wallet, documents, and bank cards. The phone was charged to 73%. The last activity was an incoming call from Michael at 12:48 p.m., which went unanswered. The car keys were in the cup holder, as the deputy had seen through the window. What puzzled investigators most was the absence of a camera. Christina's relatives confirmed that she always took her professional Canon 5D Mark III SLR camera and interchangeable lenses with her in a special backpack. Neither the camera nor the backpack were in the car, so she must have taken them with her. But where did she go? By 8 p.m. on August 7th, a team of 12 people was working at the site. Sheriff's deputies, Forest Service rangers, and volunteers from the local search and rescue service. Captain David Morales, the operation coordinator, organized a search of the trail to the observation deck and the surrounding area. Powerful flashlights and thermal imaging equipment were used. The 400-meter trail was thoroughly searched. The ground cover, heavily trampled by thousands of tourists over the years, did not retain clear footprints. It was impossible to determine whether Christina had taken this route. No personal belongings or signs of a struggle were found on the observation deck, which is a large wooden platform with a railing. On the morning of August 8th, dog handlers with 4 search dogs joined the operation. The dogs were given Christina's clothes, provided by her fiancé, to sniff. The dogs' reaction was strange. All 4 animals approached the parked car, sniffed it, then began to move toward the start of the trail. But after 15 to 20 meters, they lost the trail and stopped in confusion. Guide Thomas Erickson, who had been working with search dogs for 22 years, later said, "I've never seen anything like it. Usually a dog either picks up a scent and follows it or doesn't react at all. Here they clearly smelled something, but the trail broke off almost immediately. It was as if the person had vanished into thin air." By the 3rd day of the search, the operation had expanded to a scale rarely seen in this region. 280 people combed the area within a 15-kilometer radius of the parking lot. A California rescue helicopter flew over the area with thermal imaging equipment. Climbers checked steep cliffs and crevices where Christina could have fallen or descended. The terrain was indeed rugged. Captain Morales described it as a vast area with extreme elevation changes, deep canyons, dense vegetation, and many natural hiding places. Pine forests alternated with granite cliffs. Deep ravines covered with shrubs were rugged to access, even for experienced climbers. Several small streams flowed down the slopes into a reservoir. Detective Sarah Bishop of the Tuolumne County Sheriff's Office, assigned as the lead investigator, considered various scenarios. An accident remained the most likely explanation. Christina could have strayed from the trail to find a better angle for her photos, slipped on the steep slope, and fallen into a crevice. However, an extensive search failed to locate her body. The second theory was criminal. Someone could have attacked Christina and kidnapped her, but there were no signs of a struggle in the car. Cameras at the nearest gas station, 22 miles from the scene, only recorded Christina's car passing by at 6:42 a.m. No suspicious vehicles were seen following her or arriving in the Donal Vista area around the same time. The third version, voluntary disappearance, was quickly rejected. Christina was happy in her relationship and was planning her wedding for October. Her photography business was thriving and she had no financial problems. Her friends and colleagues unanimously agreed that she had no reason to disappear. 3 weeks of active searching yielded no results. On the 28th of August, the official search operation was called off. Captain Morales said at a press conference, "We have searched every foot within a 9-mile radius. We have used all available resources. Unfortunately, Miss Newell has not been found. The case remains an active investigation." Christina's family, her parents Robert and Linda Newell and her sister Jennifer, did not give up hope. They organized their own search party of volunteers who continued to check remote areas every weekend. A reward of $50,000 was offered for information leading to Christina's whereabouts. Local media linked Christina's disappearance to the previous 3 cases. Journalists dubbed Donal Vista the cursed lookout. One reporter from the Sacramento Bee wrote, "4 people in 8 years, 4 different circumstances, not a single body, not a single clue. What is going on in these mountains?" On the 23rd of September 2013, precisely 47 days after the disappearance, hiker Jack Harrington from Los Angeles was hiking alone in a remote area 5.5 miles northwest of Donal Vista. The route ran along a high ridge with picturesque views of the valley. At 2:20 p.m., Harrington noticed something bright on a flat granite rock jutting out over the cliff. As he got closer, he discovered a pair of women's hiking boots. The shoes were neatly placed, toes pointing toward the edge of the cliff. The cliff was about 500 feet high, a sheer granite wall descending into a forest-covered canyon. Harrington immediately called the rescue service. By 4 p.m., an investigation team was working at the site. The shoes were photographed in situ, then removed for examination. They were Salomon brand hiking boots, size 38, women's. Inside the insole was a tag with the name K. Newell. Christina signed her belongings, according to her relatives. The shoes were in relatively good condition, considering that they had been lying in the open air for more than 6 weeks. The soles were worn, and there were traces of dirt and vegetation on the upper part. Forensic experts determined that the shoes had been taken off and placed there intentionally, rather than having fallen off or been thrown away. The discovery of the shoes gave the investigation a new direction. A team of climbers descended the cliff face, checking every ledge and crevice. The bottom of the canyon, covered with thick brush and boulders, was combed by teams with dogs. The search continued for 5 days. Christina's body was not found. None of her other belongings were found. No backpack with a camera, no clothes, nothing. Detective Bishop consulted with experts on the behavior of missing persons. Dr. Michael Turner, a psychologist specializing in disappearances, offered several hypotheses. Removing shoes in extreme situations can indicate hypothermia. One of the paradoxical symptoms is that a person feels hot and starts to undress. If Miss Newell spent the night in the mountains without shelter, the temperature could have dropped to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Hypothermia could have led to disorientation and irrational behavior. However, this version did not explain how Christina walked 5.5 miles from the place of her disappearance. Why did she only take off her shoes and place them neatly? Why was her body not found? The Christina Newell case officially remains open. She is listed as missing. Her photos and description are in the National Crime Information Center database. Periodically, reports come in from people claiming to have seen a woman resembling Christina in various cities. All leads are checked, but none have been confirmed. Ranger Molly Fuller resigned a year after Christina's disappearance. In her farewell interview, she said, "I can't work there anymore. 4 people disappeared during my shift. I feel like I let them all down. This place takes people, and we don't know why." The story of Christina Newell remains one of the most mysterious disappearances in the Sierra Nevada. The mountains keep their secrets, and sometimes they are not ready to give them up. On the 2nd of October 2024, 46-year-old geologist Robert Hansen set out on a solo hike in the Seven Lakes area of Olympic National Park, Washington. For a man with 11 years of experience on the Olympic Mountain Rescue Search and Rescue Team, this route was familiar down to the smallest detail. Robert had hiked it more than 50 times. No one could have imagined that the most experienced rescuer would himself become the subject of a large-scale search operation and return with a story he could not remember. Robert had planned a 2-day hike with an overnight stay at Lake Hawk, a picturesque body of water surrounded by dense coniferous forests and granite cliffs. He registered at the park entrance in the morning, informing the rangers of his route and estimated time of return. The weather was typical for October in the Pacific Northwest: variable cloudiness, a temperature of around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and a light breeze. The last text message to his wife, Linda, came in the afternoon. Robert reported that he had set up camp by the lake and everything was going according to plan. Communication in the mountains is unstable, so when Linda didn't receive an evening call, she wasn't worried. Robert often went a day without communication. However, when he did not return home on the 3rd day and missed a check-in call, his colleagues from the rescue service raised the alarm. Captain Stephen Riley, Robert's friend and partner on many operations, personally led the search party. The team found Robert's tent exactly where he had planned, by Lake Hawk. The tent was set up correctly with all the pegs in place. All his equipment was inside: a backpack, spare clothes, food, and a camping stove. The sleeping bag was unzipped from the inside, as if the man had gotten up in the middle of the night. His hiking boots were neatly placed at the entrance to the tent. What immediately alarmed the rescuers was that Robert's GPS tracker, which he always carried with him as an experienced rescuer, was left in the tent. The data downloaded from the device showed an unusual pattern. At 3:17 a.m., the tracker recorded the start of movement northward. Moving at 7 miles per hour is physically extremely difficult for a person in a dark forest at night without lighting on rough terrain. The trail ended after 2.5 miles in an area of dense rainforest. Captain Riley suggested, perhaps the GPS tracker was damaged or malfunctioned. Robert could have woken up at night, left the tent to relieve himself, walked a few dozen feet away, and become disoriented in the dark. This happens even to experienced people. The search operation began immediately. More than 80 people, Robert's colleagues, park rangers, volunteers, combed the area within a 9-mile radius of the camp. Search dogs, a helicopter with thermal imaging equipment, and drones were used. The Olympic Mountains rainforest is one of the densest in the continental United States, with thick undergrowth and numerous fallen trees, which made the search considerably more difficult. The weather was deteriorating. It started to rain, and the temperature dropped to 37.4 degrees Fahrenheit at night. Without warm clothes and equipment left in the tent, Robert's chances of survival were rapidly declining with each passing day. The team worked around the clock, checking every crevice, every ravine, every section of the dense forest. Detective Emily Chen of the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office considered an accident to be the most likely scenario. Robert could have fallen, been injured, and lost consciousness. However, the massive search yielded no results. More than 180 square miles of territory were checked. On the 21st of October, 19 days after his disappearance, a group of hunters found Robert in the Bogushell River Valley, 17 miles from his camp. This was an area that searchers had already checked twice. Robert was sitting at the foot of a large spruce tree, in a state of complete prostration. Hunter Mark Davidson later recounted, "We saw a man sitting motionless. He was looking straight ahead, but it seemed he couldn't see us. We called out to him. No response. Only when we got close did he blink and turn his head. It was clear he was in shock." Robert was immediately taken by helicopter to Harborview Hospital in Seattle. A medical examination revealed severe exhaustion. He had lost 35 pounds. He was moderately dehydrated and had multiple abrasions and scratches on his arms and body, signs of prolonged hypothermia. Surprisingly, his feet were virtually unscathed, even though he was found barefoot. Dr. Alice Martinez, a neurologist who examined Robert, noted, "The patient shows classic signs of dissociative amnesia caused by extreme stress. Blood tests showed abnormally high levels of cortisol and adrenaline, stress hormones. This indicates that the patient's body was in a state of prolonged fight or flight response. This happens in cases of extreme psychological trauma." Robert could remember almost nothing about the 19 days he spent in the forest. His last memory was of sleeping in a tent. The next was of sitting under a tree while strangers approached him. Everything between those moments was a blank. Psychologist Dr. Kenneth Walsh, who specializes in traumatic disorders, explained, "The brain protects itself from unbearable experiences by blocking access to traumatic memories. If Mr. Hansen experienced something that his psyche perceived as a threat to his existence, whether it was an encounter with a predator, a fall, or wandering for days in a state of panic, the brain could erase those memories as a defense mechanism." 3 parallel scratches, each about 14 inches long, were found on Robert's back. Park biologist Jennifer Cole examined the wounds and suggested, "The distance between the scratches is wide. It's not a bear. Their claws leave more clustered marks." Perhaps Robert was climbing over a fallen tree with protruding branches or slipping on a rock. In a state of panic and disorientation, a person can sustain multiple injuries without realizing it. Robert spent 2 weeks in the hospital recovering physically. His psychological rehabilitation took much longer. A month after his return, he wrote a letter of resignation from Olympic Mountain Rescue. In his letter to his colleagues, he explained, "I can no longer trust the mountains. I lost something there. Not just my memory, but the part of myself that felt safe in the forest. Please understand my decision." His wife Linda told reporters, "Robert has changed. He doesn't talk about what happened because he doesn't remember, but I see how he flinches at the sound of the wind, how he avoids looking at photos from his hikes. Something happened there, in those woods. something his mind is protecting him from by refusing to remember. The story of Robert Hansen remains one of the most mysterious in the annals of Olympic Mountains search and rescue operations. An experienced rescuer who knew the mountains like his own home spent 19 days in the forest and returned without a single memory. Medical science explains this as traumatic amnesia. But the question remains, what could scare a man who has dedicated his life to saving others in these very mountains so much that his mind prefers to forget everything that happened? 2 stories, 2 outcomes. 1 mystery. Christina Newell never returned. Her shoes were at the edge of the cliff, her car was locked with the keys inside, and her disappearance without a trace became another unsolved mystery of the Sierra Nevada. The ranger who worked in the area quit, saying, "This place takes people, and we don't know why." Robert Hansen survived, but lost 19 days of his life. His memory erased all the events that occurred in the Olympic Mountains. An experienced rescuer who had spent 11 years helping people in the mountains. He never returned to the mountains. "I lost something there, not just my memory, but the part of myself that felt safe in the forest," he wrote to his colleagues. Mountains don't explain. They don't justify themselves. They just exist, ancient, indifferent, keeping secrets that humanity may never unravel. These stories are a reminder that even in our age, in the era of GPS and satellite communications, nature remains a force that we do not fully understand or control. If you know of similar cases or have encountered something inexplicable in the mountains yourself, please share your experiences in the comments. Subscribe to the channel to learn more real-life stories of disappearances that defy logic. Don't forget to turn on notifications. The following story may be even more mysterious. Take care of yourself in the mountains. Nature does not forgive mistakes.